Hello and welcome to episode 133 of Things I Learned from Barry Harris. And today I thought we would discuss just adding on to some of Barry's beautiful things that he gave us to practice. So today I thought we would look at Barry's descending half-step rules, which if you haven't seen, I've posted them on the site. And I forget which episode it is, but you can check it out. It's in the title. But let's just talk about, for example, F7 scale. And one of the things for F7 for descending half-step rules was the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh, or the odd notes all have the same number of half-steps, either one or three. The second, fourth, and the sixth, or the even number, all have the same number of half-steps, which is either 0 or 2. So for instance, let's say from the second, we're going to do no half-steps, or 2 half-steps. From the third, we're going to do 1 half-step or 3 half-steps. And the half-steps for the second are between, when you do the 2, are between second and tonic, tonic and flat 7. The half-steps for the 3 are going to be either between tonic and 7 or between 3 and 2, 2 and 1, tonic and 7. Now this is for the dominant scale. Okay. The second rule, though, which is very interesting, is if you start on a note and you jump up a third to another note, like a third. So if we start on F and we jumped up to A, you're going to follow the rule for the next note descending. So for instance, if we said F-A, the next note descending would be G. So that would be, since it's the second, it would be either no half steps or 2 half steps. So listen to what we have. That's 2 half steps, or here's no half steps. Now these are really beautiful. But somebody, actually the somebody was Bryce at class, guitar player, very good guitar player. He likes to practice those, but he does them with a half step before the third. So in other words, if we have the F-A, he starts on the and he puts a half step before that F. So he'll say, which is really pretty. So now instead of this, you have this 1, 2, 3, 4. That is such a pretty thing. And just with that slight variation, it just shows you we will never run out of things to practice. And everybody has their own individual way of taking a concept and being able to practice it and making it musical for them. But this is... So let's do this, the next one, which would be the third up from the G, which would be G, B flat. And then we're going to say, we're going to use the rule for the 3 because that's the next note descending. So let's do 1 half step. That's really pretty. But now let's do the thing where we put the half step below. That is so pretty. And I know it's a slight variation, but these little slight variations make such a difference. Okay, let's do 3 to 5. Which means the next note descending is going to be 4. No half steps. Let's do that. Now let's do 2 half steps. Or let's put the half step before it. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that stuff is so pretty. I love that. So now if you want to take it a step further, you can even look at it this way. You could say, okay, let's take the half step. Let's still do this concept, except let's do the thing where we started on an and. So now if we start, so we were doing it on an and, we started with the half step on an and, right? So now let's flip it. So I shouldn't have said it started on an and. Let's start on a beat. So now instead of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, which is really hip. What if we started with the half step that starts on the beat? That means that the rule's going to reverse, which means the top note of the third is going to be the note that gets whatever rule we decide. So in other words, instead of this, that's how we started before. But now let's put a half step before the first note and let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. That means this note is on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the second beat. And now the third is on the beat. So now we'll do either 1 half step or 3 half steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I love that. Or 3 half steps. I love that. Let's do the second. Remember, the second is normally ending on the third, which means we're going to do 1 half step. Or 3. So now let's do the half step below, but starting on a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 2 half steps because I used the rule for the 4, the top note. Or none. Now, if that's true of doing a half step before, let's go back and let's do the half step for a triad. So if we started with it, here's our triad. The normal rule for the triad is, since we're thinking about the beats, 1 and 2, the top note is going to be on a beat, so we'll use the rule for the top note. So in this case, I'm playing 1, 3, 5. The 5 is the top note. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a pretty one. That's 1 half step. All those are pretty. Now let's take the rule for the 5 and let's do that thing where we put a half step before the first note. But we're going to do it on an and, so everything stays the same. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. I like that. But now let's do it with the half step on the beat. So now the top note is not going to be what decides. It's going to be the next note descending, which will be the 4. So we'll do no half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. I love that. Let's do no half steps though. I love that. But to feel that, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or the other way, which is on the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, these are all great. So it even shows you, you think you've practiced something. You think you got it together. You say, okay, I got Barry's descending half step rules totally together. And then, like I think I've talked about before, within Barry one time in a class said, oh, you know, if you start on an and, all the rules reverse, which means that, you know, everything that I had practiced up till that point was starting on a beat. And then like this light bulb went off like, oh my goodness, that's only half of the things I should be practicing. But then you have this other thing where now I'm saying, well, let's put a half step before, or the thing that Bryce did, which is put a half step before, but still starting on the and, so you're not going to change anything. But I like that half step before, that little pickup. That's beautiful. But then if you use the half step before starting on a beat, now it reverses everything too, like starting on an and reverses everything. It's just there's so many ways to shape your phrase conception. It's just that there are so many different things to practice, and it just, so sometimes it can become very overwhelming. So over at Open Studio, where we talk about this stuff all the time, and I highly recommend checking it out over at openstudiojazz.com for all the beautiful classes that they have there. And I'm teaching there 5 days a week. But this is the kind of stuff we talk about. We'll just spend time, all of us together on a Zoom class, and we'll talk about these things, and we'll each get a chance to practice them. But that's how these ideas blossom, you know. And but it just shows you that this is really the way that we're supposed to get better. This is really the way. It's not one person's way of thinking. Like I give Barry the credit for all this stuff because, yeah, he's the one that taught a lot of us how to think like this. But I think I rightly give him credit for this because even though there's some of these things that maybe he didn't practice, he taught us the way in which you should think about it, which then leads to all these beautiful ways of putting a half step below, starting on this note, changing. It's just, it's completely freeing to think about it, you know? And it's not just, let's take this beautiful Charlie Parker phrase and let's play it in all the keys. It's the furthest thing from that. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and enjoy practicing some of the things you normally do, but with a slight twist with half steps. Until next time.